Welcome to the Digital Marketing Mentor. I'm your host, Danny Gavin, and together with industry leaders and marketing experts, we'll explore the meeting point of mentorship and marketing. We'll discover how these connections have affected careers, marketing strategies, and lives. Now get ready to get human. Hey everyone, my name is Danny Gavin. I'm the founder of Optage, a full-service digital marketing agency and a marketing professor, and the host of the Digital Marketing Mentor. I'm super excited to have a very special guest today, Cory Henke, my man, the CEO and founder of Variable Media. And Variable Media is an analytics agency, ultimately. They use data and results-driven planning, strategy, and buying using proprietary variable analysis methodology. Recently, Cory, he presented at Hero Conference in Austin, and he won Best Presentation as well. Cory, in general, speaks at he's invited to speak at a lot of different conferences and online webinars, and he's truly a master of data. So awesome to have you here, Cory.
Thank you. Thank you, Danny, so much to be here. Just excited, man. Haven't got a chance to sit down and talk with you. But yeah, super excited that, we get a chance to do this. So,
all right. So let's dive straight in. Let's talk about your background.
Sure.
Where did you go to school and what did you study?
Sure. I think like most kids coming out of high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Ended up in junior college for a year and then somehow ended up at a school called Cal Lutheran University. It's a small school in Thousand Oaks, maybe about 3,000 kids. And I'm lucky enough to have made the college basketball team there, having never played in high school. And that was, just a journey over a summer with a close friend of mine who was going to, play D1. And luckily I had a background in volleyball, so I could jump pretty high. And, D3 is not D1. So I was able to slide in there, and that was kind of, a really cool thing. And, something I hold, close to.
I feel like that basketball experience was really important in shaping you. Mm-hmm. Just because I know your discipline and, was there a coach or maybe a professor during college that was kind of stood out as like inspiration or maybe someone you even think about these days?
I think what drove me was the fact that, I could try out every single year in high school and never make it, for, in my opinion, somewhat of the wrong reasons. And then, there was a coach that, in college that gave me a chance. But the interesting part about that story, Danny, is that as I was trying to make the team, there was a time where, I had to go into that office and say, hey, coach, can I make this team? Would you allow me on this team? And he said, no. And he said, you can go kick rocks. And I was just like, and I told him, and it was kind of just off the cuff. I'm just like, listen, man, I know it's expensive to put somebody on this team, right? You got to take them to Hawaii. You got to give them a jersey. You got to put, money in. I don't need any of that. Just let me practice. These guys are my best friends now. And I just want to come to practice. I don't care, about playing, any of that stuff. I just want to be next to these guys. So then I think about a week later, he was just give me some time. Let me think about it. He had a meeting with the team. And at the end of the meeting, nobody said anything. And finally, one of the team captains stood up and said, hey, what about Cory? And the coach, pointed to the board with a lot of the things that they wanted to do this year. And he says, you guys think that we can't accomplish all these things without Cory? Right? Which is an absolutely fair statement. And I think the response was listen, coach, Cory's not going to score 20 points a game. Cory's not going to be the best on this team, but he does add value in the sense that he's going to make us better. Then he sits down. Somebody else gets up and stands up for me. He sits down. Somebody else stands up and gets up for me. And after that, the coach was just a little flustered, they said. Again, I wasn't there. But after that, I walked into his office and he threw me a jersey and he said, you earn the respect of your teammates. And it was, one of those times in life that I will never forget. But it wasn't necessarily the coach. It was really the team, that stood up for me. And I think from that, I learned a lot being on that team. I learned, I think one of the biggest things that coach ever said to me was just we're going to work you so hard that when you get out of college, it'll be easy. And he couldn't have been more right. The fact that I was up at 5 a.m. and running until 7 a.m. and then going to class. And then at 12, you got to go to practice. And then you have to weight lift. And then you go back to class for a little bit. And then you have to go back to practice and then go to study hall. They own a lot of your time. And then when you get out, you just have to go to work from 9 to 5 and they pay you. Pretty good deal, if you ask me.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I feel like that's why a lot of athletes, I mean, I'm not saying all of them, but a lot of athletes I feel they are successful because later on in life, because they have that grounding and they know what it means to work hard and to graft hard.
I try to apply the same mentality. I try to be able to push through and, be a team player. I think the thing that it taught me, Danny, is that like I never really played. Like of 3 years playing on this team, I probably played a total of 20 minutes, maybe scored
Wow.
8 to 10 points, total. Because again, me coming there, I couldn't gain the knowledge that these guys had the previous 4 years. And it was a little upsetting. I could jump with them, I could play with them, but I couldn't know the plays or run things the same way they could with that experience. And it showed me the value of experience, to like really learn something in depth over a long period of time. But I think the bigger thing that I learned was being a role player, like knowing your role on a team. Like you're not always going to be the best. Like sometimes you're going to be a sous chef. Like it's okay, and I took that with me. And wherever I went, you kind of had to like mold yourself to the role to make sure that the overall job got done. And I think that's a lot of agency work, right? Like you're not going to come in as an assistant account executive and, be leading a call, right? You have to learn that, like over time. And so luckily I had, great teachers, at that first job that was able to help me, mold me, really help. So I really appreciate those.
I mean, we're already talking about mentorship, right? But
Sure.
let's go into, how would you define a mentor?
I would define a mentor as somebody that's willing to tell you the truth, somebody that doesn't necessarily, need anything from you, but is willing to, help you, give you their time. I think, mold you. But I think the biggest thing that they can do is tell you the truth and earn your trust so that you believe them when they tell you things that are a little bit tougher to hear. But that's what I think it is.
The running theme about the truth and transparency is so important, right? Because a mentor, when they sugarcoat it, we don't want that, right? We want to hear what they actually have to say. And obviously you have to be a willing vessel in order to receive that. But yeah, it's a very important part. We touched upon high school, college. Let's get into your mentors, especially when you were, at the corporations and the corporate jobs early in your career.
Yeah, I think one of my first mentors was one of my first bosses, Kat Chung. If I could describe her in one word, it'd be ruthless. I remember the first time I was training with her, it was like she kind of just, went through things and she would check on me like, yo, are you paying attention? Because I don't want to repeat this again. So like, you're going to take notes, you're going to go through this. And it really level set me in terms of just like, oh, okay, this is a serious thing. Like I can't waste her time. And there was multiple times during that like first year where she's just, slams the deck on my desk and goes, hey, we're all waiting for you to finish, and it kind of puts things in perspective that this is a team, you're a piece of it, and we need you to get your stuff done so all this thing can move. And I think that's what, she definitely gave, me, was just that sense of urgency. This is serious, and you need to take it seriously because these are big brands. And, she's got a job to do, and her job is to make me, as good as I can be. So I think she was big in the earliest, part of my career. And now that, I manage a team of 10 and I have managers who manage new people that come on, I always let them know, and the person that they're managing, that like, that's the person. Like the person that turns you into like a good, office, a good individual who's there, adds value, and sort of changes, the way that you, approach things, I think deserves, a lot of credit, in terms of that person's career, because it's tough in the beginning. It was very tough for me. I felt a lot, and I'm glad I had amazing people around me to help.
It's funny because it reminds me of sometimes when I'm like teaching someone or telling someone and I see that they're not taking notes. I look at them, I'm like, can you please take out a pen and start writing? It's funny because not everyone's like that. Some people, process differently, but for me, it's like, if you're not taking notes, I'm not going to waste my time. So I can relate to that. So that's cool. So it feels like that there was a lot of tough love in a good way. Was it ever too tough? Like, man, I don't know if this is for me, or man, they're being really rough. Or did you take it with stride?
Fortunately or unfortunately, I don't have like the best upbringing. And so I think kids that go through a lot of trauma are able to deal with tough love a a little bit better. So I never went through the whole, oh no, this is going to be too hard, like this and that. I was more on the other side of, can we get this guy to just calm down? You know, like when he comes into the office, he has an impact, positive or negative. When he comes in, everybody's happy. If he comes in upset, everybody's a little, like on edge, right? So what I had to do is begin to control my emotions a little better, because I believe that what they were trying to teach me was that the same reason why we all come to work in clothing is the same reason that you should come into work with like a good attitude, so that everybody else is happy. We can all get through this day and, sort of leave your baggage at the door, and pick it up on kind of on the way out. So that's something that I definitely had to learn.
And that's wonderful, because I think it brings up a point about typically that mentor relationship is, let's say someone who's kind, but it's cool. What you're pointing at is there were mentors in your early days in agencies that maybe didn't act the best way. From their behavior, you were able to learn things as well. And instead of like running away from it, you could actually embrace those opportunities and situations as well.
100%. There was two other, important ladies in that office as well at that agency. I definitely want to highlight because they were a bigger part of that like first 3 years of my career. And that would be Leela Kwong and Maggie Chen. And these two were really my managers. Like they're the ones who molded me, I think, to be a good, leader of a brand. These were the ladies that I was in meetings with where I would be begging, like, come on, please let me get in there and say something. Let me get a slide. Come on, just let me get a slide, to present. And they would always say, calm down. We'll let you meet with this rep. And that was cool because those reps always came with Laker tickets or steak dinners, or other things like that. And for a young 22, 23, 24-year-old guy, it was pretty cool experience. But those ladies, I think, poured it into me. They believed in me, I think, more than I believed in myself. And they saw something in me that I just couldn't see. But they always told me I would be great. They always told me that, like, you got a headlight kid, you're going to be special. And it was hard for me to believe at that age. But I look back on it now and I couldn't be more thankful for them. And everything that they put into me. And it was a lot of like hard work, I would say. It's just like, got to bring this kid along, got to teach him. Because I'm going in there with questions like, hey, like, this is like a lot of money that we're spending. Like, my paycheck? What? Like, how is this even possible? Right? They have to answer those tough questions and say, there's a lot of people here, Cory. That computer out there costs money that you use. We have to take risks on people like you, And so that type of education, I think, is important, for a young man to learn. But ultimately, I owe a lot to them. I definitely do. And they were super impactful, I think, in my career. So, just great mentors very early on for me. 3 wonderful ladies that definitely helped me.
At that time, did you fall in love with the agency life?
Oh, so this is what it was, Danny. This is what it was. This was it, man. This was like the inflection point for me. So one of my first clients was Mormon.org, and we were driving users to the website on a cost per chat. So as soon as they opened the chat window to just discuss religion with a BYU student on the other end before he went on his mission, that's where we would kind of see that conversion. And so back then we would run on a variety of ad networks because a lot of, Google, Yahoo, they wouldn't necessarily take like the religious content. And so we were working with a variety of ad networks and it came down to maybe like a $10 cost per chat. And so I would run across Traffic Marketplace, Specific Media, Value Click, all these different places. And I would say, okay, can we get this to 8? Yeah, sure. Okay, if you double the budget, we'll get it to 5. Wait a second. It's 50% of the margin. How did you just cut 50% of the margin? Where's the margin, guys? Is it 90? Is it 80? That was the inflection point for me. Because I'm just like, we're pricing things that aren't actual things. Like, this is like impressions. These are real estate on a website. It doesn't cost anything to produce. What's going on here, right? So my move after that was to learn more about the publisher side. And I got the amazing opportunity to go work at Yahoo. And that was, a huge advancement in a lot of different ways, because I remember in the interview, they were like, well, how much would you like to make here? And I was making about $35,000 at the time. And I said, I'd like to make $65,000. And they said, well, how about 85? And I said, yes, please.
Yeah.
And just for the audience, Yahoo in 2009, 10 was more like Facebook of today.
And how did you find that job? Was it just a job posting? Did a friend, or how did you get there?
I wanted to go on the publisher side, and so whether it was an ad network, I was just applying to publishers, and I just wanted to get out of that agency world and just extend my understanding of this industry because I was just wrapped into it. Like I knew that I didn't know at the time, but I could see it now that digital advertising is a disruption and an innovation at the same time. It disrupted TV in terms of taking the dollars, but the innovation of digital just keeps it nonstop. So it's always moving, it's never changing. And so when I saw how those two things work together in terms of digital media, I'm like, I have to go work, at a big publisher. I have to go get experience, like I can't sit here for 20 years.
Yeah. So tell me about it. So what were some of the lessons learned from like being an account manager for like Sony and Red Bull and Adidas?
Oh man. Oh, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And I can't, credit Los Angeles enough for just being such a big city that can provide, a young kid, young traumatized kid an opportunity, like that. I just think it's crazy that there's so many places that don't get an opportunity to work on brands like that. But I was hungry, man. At Yahoo, I had an amazing boss, Alexis Coronel. She was great. She was amazing to me, but I think she had a lot of account managers that I didn't get the focus time that maybe, I got it, at the previous agency, but it was magical in the sense that I was able to walk into offices, with this Yahoo badge and obtain so much respect and like looked at it a certain way because of the logo that I had. My grandma knew where I worked for the first time. Like people had like a respect factor, with that logo. I got to work on stuff and they really extended me. They sent me up to San Francisco to work with that team, working with the Los Angeles team. I was doing so much, just trying to gather as much learning as possible, trying to put as many logos, as I possibly could up. And it was such a valuable experience. I would recommend it, for anybody, but I can't say enough positive things about, working there with those people. I think also what you get to at a Yahoo or at a Facebook is you get a bunch of hyper intelligent people. There's a lot of people vying for those jobs. And it's kind of like a Ivy League in the sense that only a select few make it into those bigger, publishers. That's another thing that I found is that like I felt the competition level was at its highest, at a job like that.
So it pushed you to be even more successful.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. The only thing that limited me was my age and an interoffice relationship, but we won't get into that.
No need. Yeah. But it's funny. I feel like, we're 10 years later. I feel like age is less of a thing these days.
Oh yeah, no way.
Let's move on to your last stint before your agency. Sure. But let's talk about Molio. You mentioned to me that there was an individual, the CEO, Jeff Davis. Yes. He's now a professor, which is pretty cool. Yeah. So just tell me a bit about how did he shape your perspective and
Jeff Davis was huge in my career. Like I can't say enough about this guy. He put me in so many positions to just, showcase my skill set. He allowed me to innovate within his company, which I think is another great thing. He worked me to the bone though. So it wasn't like I wasn't providing value, working on the biggest clients, this and that. But it was also my first opportunity to work in self-service media, which is buying inside of Google ads and Facebook ads and, applying the data analytics to YouTube was kind of, where I was, really special. But Jeff Davis took me with him to investor meetings so I could see what those look like. He took me with him to huge clients at this small agency and really put me out as kind of the face of this, agency. And it was respected. And I think I can't thank him enough, for everything, that he taught me, but more, I think, the positions he put me in, were just amazing. And, he gave me his time, gave me his effort. He showed me so much. And even to this day, we still connect and, he's still a big fan of me like I am of him. He was huge. It sucked to break away and do my own thing. Unfortunately, I got to feed my family, man, so.
How did that go? I mean, was it because think about it, here's this guy, he put so much into you. Yeah. And I'm sure he did it, it worked both ways, right? Good for him, good for you. Yeah. But I know when I put so much into someone and they're it's time to go, it's painful. So how did that go down?
We had a client come through the door, a very big D2C brand named Purple Mattress. And
Yes.
they were running these beautiful, YouTube spots at the time. And they came in and they wanted to spend about 50 grand a month. And by month 3, they were spending $500,000. And so on a 10% margin, when you go from 5K to 50K, you're the only person working on the account. You want to go in there and ask for a little bump, right?
Just a little
Just
bit,
a little
right?
one. And so in going in and asking for that bump, he just, had that kind of just like, listen, kid, like we can't pay you what you want here, and it was disheartening, and if I look back at it, I'm just a young kid who doesn't understand, like I have my own agency now and I wouldn't have paid me that. I would have worked with me probably a little bit more than he may have.
Yeah.
But, hindsight's always 2020. I could understand his position. And for me, I think moving to Utah, that was one thing that I forgot to mention. He actually moved me out to Utah to work at his agency. And I was there for about a year, maybe 9 months to a year living in Utah. But in him doing that, he showed true belief in me. Me and my girlfriend at the time were both there and we loved it. I had never lived anywhere outside of Los Angeles. So it was definitely a culture shock, but I think a positive one. Utah's an amazing place. So family oriented, like no traffic, for a kid like me, it was such a stress depreciation. I was like, this is amazing. What Utah gave me is a way to sort of start my own business at a lower cost. I don't think I could have done that in Los Angeles because of how expensive it is. Utah gave me the runway to be able to launch my own business and to say, okay, if I don't make any money for the next 3 months, that's okay. Maybe the next 6 months might hurt, but I can go 3 months and we'll see. Right. So that I think was like the combination of efforts, the belief in me to move me out there, the belief in me, with the brand, taking me places, like this and that. And then all of a sudden, you end up starting your own business and the people that you've connected with in Utah, they're willing to help. And so I had so many people that I had worked with over the time that were just like, hey, do you want to come present? Hey, do you need a new client? I heard you're starting your own business, and I couldn't imagine how many amazing people there are in Utah that helped me start my own business. I'm so thankful and, forever in debt to those people.
When you left Molio, did you know that you wanted to start your own agency, or was there a little bit of a process there?
No, I knew. I was like,
because
the self-service stuff, my thought process, 5 years ago when I started that agency was just like, oh, self-service is going to take over. We're not going back to calling each other and placing buys and saying, hey, 20K, 10 million impressions. Okay, sign the deal, done, no data. Like everything will move to Google ads, Facebook ads. And from there, it's only been self-serve. And so I knew that advertisers needed to move in this direction and they would move in this direction. It's just, could I be good enough and showcase my skill set so that they would want to run with me versus, maybe a different agency. And I think I was able to do that based on my experience having worked at multiple agencies. It's just like, oh, I can do this. It's the reporting. It's the call. It's making sure you have no mistakes. Like there's certain things like that working at an agency that you can provide, I think.
It reminds me like Legend of Zelda. Like, I don't know if you're a gamer, but it's like you went around your path, you got your sword and your shield and your potions, and like you had everything. Like, oh dude, I've got everything now. I can go fight the monster.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So cool. So you've been in your agency now for it's almost 6 years, which is pretty cool. So now you are the mentor. So tell me about how you're mentoring your staff, your people.
I do it with transparency, love. I don't know how to be any other way, but just, honest and transparent with my team. I'm very open. I found out that there's a lot of people that kind of close themselves off to sharing knowledge, where I am completely 100% open. Like I will teach anybody anything, because what I believe is that competitiveness is that like, you want to come learn this? Like, do you know how hard this is? Like, let's go. We'll figure this out. Let's do it. I'm a teacher internally as a mentor. I'm just here to help. I think the other thing that I do as a mentor to these guys is I always, cover them. I think as a leader of a company, you have to let them take vacation, do the things that they want to do, and always let them know that you're here to back them up. If they're sick, you go ahead and I'll go ahead and take that call. Taking tons of calls. It's okay, guys. No big deal. Because I try to provide an environment so that they can grow. And the other thing that I do is I make their decisions theirs. Is that if they don't want to do something or they don't want to work on this client and I don't want to work on it, well, then fine, we're not going to have them. Is that like, why would I make you work on something that you don't want to work on? We've all been there. It's not a great, situation. And so I try to let them grow on their own. And I don't know if that's the best because I haven't necessarily seen them pull the bigger triggers, right, in their growth. But maybe it's something I need to, potentially change in the future. I don't like to pressure people. If they want to work, I tell them, make sure it's for you. Don't do it for the logo. This logo can go away. Do it for your learning, your education, your growth path. That's what's more important to me. This company can survive on its own if it's just me. It's been there before, So that I think is a good space to be in for them, so they don't feel, taken advantage of. I think.
I love that, and I love that perspective, like saying that concept of doing it for yourself, not for the logo.
Yeah.
And I think it's so important to create that environment where there are choices, and it's the age, it's the age of people. I don't want to say millennials because it's even younger than millennials, but like that's how it works, right? People are very used to making their own decisions and things like that. So why create this corporate structure that is just horrible, but create a way that you're actually going to get people excited? I can really relate to that.
I think one of the tough things is that when you're employed by somebody else and you're the employee and you're working for a company, you are somewhat selfish. The world somewhat revolves around you, your feelings and everything else. And before you sit in a seat where you've hired, multiple people, you begin to understand like, oh, wow, there is a lot that Jeff Davis used to do. Holy cow. Man, I didn't see everything that he was doing. Right. And I think that, I always try to put myself in their shoes, more than anything, especially when it's with clients or especially like internal staff. And I go, Cory, how do you think they feel right now? And it's just a humbling, of being a leader, something that like I've had to grow into and learn because it's just new for me. But I think if you do things with your heart, you care about your team, and you sacrifice because you're the one, I think you're going to end up in a good situation. But, one of the biggest, goals or things that you want to look at in terms of the health of a company is how long people stay. And, I've got some people that have stayed a long time. My VP has been here for 5 years. And so I pay these guys well. Media buying is a very unique skill set. It's very tiresome. So I think I've done a good job, bridging the gap of high pace, high reward. Yeah, just try to lead with my heart, man. As much as I possibly can.
It's funny because we had a situation earlier on the year where we were Q1, we were like going at it crazy, right? And it was exciting for my part, like, oh wow, look how busy we are, all this business. And like, thank God my employees and some of my closest, approached me and they're like, Danny, like, dude, we're going too fast and people are burning out. And it's funny because in my head, I never wanted that environment, but it actually ended up happening. But I created a situation where they felt comfortable of speaking to me. I was like, whoa. And it's like you said, going in their shoes, I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even realize this. This was, like I wouldn't want to be them. And we got to hit the brakes. And thank God it was such an eye opener for me. And it's kind of pushed me further to be able to look through their eyes. Sometimes like I stray away from that, but the point is we got to get back to that as much as you can. I want to just mention this because I think this is cool. You mentioned 3 keys to mentoring success. I'm not going to take the credit. Number 1, lead by example. 2, always make the time. And 3, hold frame and accountability. I think those are awesome. Anything you want to expound on those 3 points?
No, I think the biggest one for me is just leading by example. I do not like to ask people to do things that I can't do myself. I think, when you do that as a manager, you put yourself at such a risk. Don't ask people to do things you can't do, right? I've now changed that as things have grown and as things have gotten bigger to don't ask people to do things you are not willing to do. Because there's going to be a lot of things you don't know how to do. You can't know everything, but are you willing to get in there and do that? And I believe that, I'm willing to do whatever my team can do 100%.
So just to pivot a bit, You list dad as your first role in your LinkedIn bio.
100%.
I'm curious about this because you don't typically see executives list a personal role first. What about your family is so important to take this place on your professional resume?
Oh, it's the biggest. I mean, again, coming from not the best upbringing, a lot of trauma. I'm a person who never wanted kids because I'm like, why would you? That'd be the dumbest thing that you could do. Like, looks like it's so difficult and impossible, right? But then you meet the woman of your dreams, she changes your life. My soon to be wife, Marion, is from Estonia. She comes from, humble background. She's taught me a lot about family and like what it means. I never knew how much trauma that was in my life until I had kids. And your kids are the ones that, keep you here, and help you, understand life and what it's really about. And so, my kids will always come first, and they're the things that I'm most proud about. I think they're also tougher than any sort of job. like, let's be honest, like I think as a man, it is much easier to go to work than it is to take care of these kids even for an hour. Right. So, like I put them before everything, and I plan to, be there for them, their entire life. And so, they do come first. They'll always be first.
I love it. And I love that display because it's, I think we're getting better these days, but I think in general, often, we're scared to bring that family perspective into the business world. I feel like with COVID and Zoom and like seeing kids pop up, it's kind of normalized a little more, but it's awesome that, a lot of us say that, but we don't necessarily show it. And I think it's cool that Cory, like you're amazing at media buying and analytics, but you're also, but as equal or even more is being a dad and a parent. And that's awesome.
Yeah. I'm just not doing all the hard work right now. It's really, my soon to be wife that handles, the hard work. I get a little bit of the fun times right now, but I know when these kids get older and they can run, with me and we can have some fun, I'll be teaching them a lot. But I'm just super excited for the opportunity. And, I pray that we get to have a few more, but we'll see.
So now I want to switch. Let's get into marketing.
Sure.
What is your favorite approach and element to digital marketing?
Data. All day. People have their own backgrounds, and I just believe in data so much. I don't know if it's because I'm colorblind, right? And take the creative path, take the data path. But I just think that, there's so many different variables out there. And when it comes to marketing and advertising data, we have the best data. I mean, if we think about like finance data, back-end Shopify data, food data, health data, like we have data that looks at consumer behavior. Like I know what pages you went to, what thing you bought, how long you viewed this video. And then you went and watched another video on my YouTube channel. And then you became a subscriber, right? Like I know how many times you purchased something. Like these are like such cool indicators of just like user experience. Like the way that I can look at a placement report inside of YouTube and I know what YouTube channels like you converted on. And I can see like influencer YouTube channels versus like legacy channels like CNN, A&E, et cetera, and know that there's higher conversion rates on the influencer channels. What? How is that even possible? You're telling me that the user, you're more likely to convert on an influencer YouTube channel versus a legacy YouTube channel? Like that's interesting to me. And so I believe that like, data is just the gold to success in this field. And I wanted to be the best at mining it. I wanted to be the best at figuring out how to get to every single area to be able to analyze because I felt that gave me the best advantage. Now, I didn't know at the time, but 5 years in, we are still here and we've only increased in revenue every single year. So I believe that we've proven it as an agency, that data is, the backbone, at least to our success.
Now, I know you work with a lot of channels, but I feel like, at least to me, it's like YouTube has a special place in your heart.
Sure.
How did you come to focus your efforts and skills specifically with YouTube advertising and really mastering the channel?
Great question. And it all goes to, Jeff Davis and Molio. And it's because that agency was one of the first agencies that was able to have video production and media buying literally right next to each other. And so when I would be doing the media buying, I would say, oh, take this 2 minute, build me a 30, a 15, and a 1 minute. Test those. Oh, wow. Look at the cost per views here. Google really likes these, smaller segments. We're able to get, twice as many XYZ, blah, blah, blah. But that's where YouTube really grew for me. And it was also like a breeding ground inside Utah because you had cost efficient video production and you had, some pretty good media buyers out there with some great D2C brands that were just launching. As a Silicon Slopes was just growing in Utah. So it was like that Zelda thing, right? It was a microcosm. You're picking up your little tool sets, each and every place. And that's why, I've kind of made YouTube, my go-to in terms of a platform. I will say though, Danny, the majority of our clients do not run that much YouTube. And it's because their audience just isn't there. I'm about making money. So I'm not going to just put you on YouTube if it doesn't make sense. But I still think YouTube has, some of the most, lucrative opportunities because it's a lean back format and people are willing to spend more time with your video. If you have something harder to explain or if you want to convince somebody over content, I just think that, as all these platforms continue to grow, they all contain their own advantage. And how do you find that or exploit that? Again, I think it's through data.
How important do you think the actual creative is when it comes to YouTube ads?
Again, moving target. If you would ask me this in, 5 years ago, I'd say extremely important, like wildly. Today, it's like, face to camera. That can work. Like creative, I don't think is as important as it was, but the analysis of the creative has grown in importance because a view isn't the same across all platforms. A view at 3 seconds in a Facebook newsfeed is no comparison to a view start on a TikTok video versus, getting at least 30 seconds within YouTube. And so then the creative has to be different. One of the things that I'm focusing on, especially like this upcoming year, is just vertical video. It's like I can run the same exact spot, the same video across YouTube Shorts, TikTok, Stories, and Reels. The same ad, the same video ad, I can run across all four. Now, instead of analyzing these 3 creatives within TikTok, I'm now analyzing this one creative across these 4 platforms. And so that's sort of the shift that I've seen. And so I think creative is one of those things where you might find creative people that can change your life. Creative is one of those things that can't be calculated. Like you find somebody who's great at this, it's unlimited in terms of your possibility. But I think you can also get away with very little and still be wildly successful. And that again is why I think the onus is on how do you analyze this? Like how do you understand, what your creative is doing? And still my best recommendation for any creative is make 2 versions. Test them across 4 platforms. You'll find what wins, what works, and what's engaging. That's how I feel about creative and video, is that it's a toss-up, man. But I wouldn't do what we were doing in 5 years ago in terms of dropping $500,000 on a 2-minute spot.
You definitely don't have to do that these days. One of the benefits you highlight about your services is the ability for your clients to scale. And I think that's a big part. Like you can help people to scale. But with the hectic nature of everything in recent years, can you give some examples of some scaling you've seen from your clients or your own company, positive, even with all the craziness going on?
I think a lot of it is really like out of my hands, in terms of the scalability, as a media buyer, especially recently. If we look at the beginning of COVID, like 2020, in 2021, it was really a media buyer. You needed a really good media buyer to educate you on lower CPMs, lower CPCs. We need to put the dollars here. We need to scale, this and that. The brands that I've seen scale in the last year have really put an emphasis on product development, right? And that's not necessarily anything that has to do with media buying. Media buying is going to say this product works better than that one. We're going to do the analysis, everything. But I think the brands that have really taken the opportunity to innovate their product, either with different variations, launching new products, those are the ones that and sometimes they increase the AOV, right? Those are the ones that I think have been able to sustain growth into 2022, where I've seen others sort of, lag. Does that mean media buying, isn't as important as it used to? No. And the reason why is because this is an innovation engine. TikTok wasn't around 2 years ago. Now media buyers have to understand that and the value of it and be able to explain it. So although media buying isn't having the revenue impact, it is still important that you're testing into new channels, developing, and media buyers still have a very tough job, today. And it has just shifted to being more well-rounded. I think in terms of scale, it's really been on, the brands this past year. But I think into this next year, it's going to be a combination of both. We go back to like 2018, 2019 in terms of, okay, it's back to normalcy, right? Competition, real marketing, real advertising. Let's go. A big combination of efforts. But I think the scale has been on the brands, the past year. But previous to that, it's been all media buyers for sure.
Do you feel that TikTok is the new like Facebook? Has it gotten there? Is it?
No. It's a cute, shiny little object out there, in the ether, in my opinion. TikTok's a great place. I just think it works for certain brands, especially younger demo. I think TikTok has innovated in very unique ways. Like one of the things that we test that works really well is hashtag targeting. And so we were testing hashtag targeting for a finance brand. It wasn't banking or finance, hashtags that worked. It was a term that was more unique to the newer generation of like Gen Z or like a millennial that actually like work better. And so that's where you find very interesting, hashtag audiences. But it's like, wait a second, has Facebook never done Facebook? You have so much search data. Like, come on, give it up, right? But now they're moving into that area, right? Another thing that TikTok did was allow follower campaigns, and you're able to like retarget like people who follow you. Now you can do that, on Facebook. So I think the same way that Facebook opened up Google's targeting, you're finding TikTok opening up, Facebook targeting. And so while we might not run as many dollars on TikTok, I think it's still helping the ecosystem continue on that innovation path. But I don't see TikTok growing at the rate that it did these past couple of years. But I don't think any brand or anything is anyways. So can you really like, fault it? I don't know, but a lot of these, I think, social platforms, especially the new ones, that pop up, they will have a tough time, capturing market share because since Reels launched, it's been pretty popular. And so does Reels do to TikTok what Stories did to Snapchat? He's pretty good at it.
It's true. They are very good. It's not MySpace.
No.
It's going to be a long time till Facebook turns into MySpace.
And it's another reason why I'm just I think so highly of like Instagram and Facebook in terms of brands wanting to make that core property, especially in D2C or e-commerce, just because they lead in terms of Instagram shops or Facebook shops, like being able to purchase on platform. It's their game to lose. I think another thing that we've had immense amount of research into is Instagram shops. I think we have the majority of our brands. We have some brands where they make more money on shops than they do their Shopify website. And so, yeah, we've seen 1% of traffic, for brands. Now it's all the way up to 10% of traffic, for brands. And so this is growing at a rapid rate. There's no other platform that can do what they can do there. And I think what they really focused on is getting rid of your website. Like the fact that you can just one click add UGC into these like product pages on Instagram shops, they're doing things that your website can't necessarily do. And for some brands, we look at this website as just a conversion tool. It's a rapidly, changing environment. And then I think the other thing that Facebook did, and, we called this out internally too, is that when Facebook decides to go to Facebook, Instagram, Meta, when Meta decides to go to brands and say, hey, let's give you guys, some money to run shops, right? And then they go to the consumer and they say, hey, here's a discount. If you decide to put your credit card in and buy something, they're going to bring that, community together. I just think that, giving consumers money while you're firing employees is a bit interesting, Meta. But I think they have something special, with what they're doing in e-commerce on Instagram. And, we plan to be experts in that area as well.
And it's wonderful just with the whole like third-party Pixel and iOS 14, like it throws that all away because everything's on platform and you can actually track really well, which is so cool. I love it.
Yeah, it was a huge advantage for us, in November, and I think it saved some brands and really elevated a lot of brands. So definitely took advantage of that.
What are your top 3 strategies or tips you recommend for someone who wants to get into media buying?
Number 1, don't buy a course. No, I'm just kidding. There's great courses out there. The reason why the reason why I say that is because I think Danny, is that like media buying is something that like you have to experience, and the reason that
Yes.
is because of the pressure that's involved. Is that like when you have to manage daily budgets, monthly budgets, like there's an amount of pressure, good or bad, that I think is involved, and your analysis, you being able to see as a person that you move the needle, that you change something, that advertiser did better, they came to a call and said, hey, what'd you do, this is amazing. That's a feeling you're not going to get at a school. And so I think the example that you brought up earlier, when we were just talking about how you had a student and she had, I think it was swim instructing that was closed.
Yeah.
And she just walked in there and said, hey, I think I can do this based on, being a student of yours, right? That's the path. Come in, take the course, right? Get the learning, but understand that there's an experience involved that you need to go get to I think, cross the realm of saying like, yeah, I'm a media buyer, right? Is that I think this is an experience sport, more than anything. So that would be number 1. Number 2, be humble. Be humble. I've got wins and losses. Every great media buyer has wins and losses. Nobody always wins, right? And so be humble to know that like you're going to do your best, and sometimes it just doesn't work out because it's not all on you. The brand just might have not the greatest product. It could be the wrong season and you got dropped onto that account. You might not have the best manager. So be humble to know that like if you go through a bad experience, it's not necessarily on you, And then I think third one, I'm a little bit biased in here, but learn how to do a pivot table and a VLOOKUP. Those are Excel terms, but those will be valuable, for you as you go in there and you click download data and you have this raw data and it's 40,000 lines. You pivot table that thing, put that date column in, add those metrics, cleans it up. Visualization.
Love it. One last question before we start to wrap up. And I know this is kind of random out of left field.
Sure.
But your company website seems to be in Notion.
Yes.
What led you to choose that platform to present all the information about your business?
I've always struggled with websites. I tried to be a web designer very early on in my career. And I was never like really great at it. Like I never got to understand like HTML and JavaScript. And I tried so hard, to just be really good at a website. I had a horrible website for a long time. And at some point we were just getting too much business that like, I just left it there. I'm like, I just don't even care. And as we kept getting more business from referral, I just thought like, I don't need a website. Like I just don't. It's there for people to know like I exist, but it never really like drove business. But I don't knock it. I know there's some amazing web developers out there. I know you have an amazing website, Danny, that drives conversions. Like they are, important, I think, to the success. I think there's a lot of things that you can do with it. I think the reason why I built it in Notion was just ease. Like I didn't want to pay for, space on a web server, and the fact that like I can change it like this and it updates like that, like very simply, I think is great. I think it also allows me to expand and build out like multiple properties, right? Like very easily. This is just a template, copy and paste, boom, 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 change it. And I also wanted to make it simple for like the user, right? Because I live in this world of like media buying and we're always sending people to websites. But what do we know about websites? They're all different. And so why do people love finding brands on Instagram? Because they're used to it. I'd much rather see your brand on Instagram than go to your website, because I don't know how your website works. I know how Instagram works. So if I go to Instagram, I can see what you did yesterday. I can see how people use your product. I can browse your products. I can see what type of videos you're posting. I can see all about your brand, much better than, going to your website for some of the brands that like I work with. And so I wanted that same type of feel, whereas that like, if you want to work with us, understand that like, we're not flashy. We're grimy. Like we're going to get to the results and we're going to tell you how it is. And, we'll go from there. I just want to think simplified. I didn't want it to be complicated. I didn't want to, I think another thing, Danny, too, about the website is I felt that in working with web developers, I couldn't just tell them, hey, make me a website. They'd be like, well, what do you want? Well, what do you want to do? Well, what do you want on it? You can't just say that. You have to give me what you want. And so it's just well, if I have to give you what I want, I might as well just do it. Yeah, but you don't know what you're doing. It's just I'll just put it in a Notion template, forget it. The crazy part though, Dan, about that Notion website is as soon as I threw it up and just in the contact area, I just added a Calendly link. I started to get leads for the first time. I was like, this works. People come to your website and fill this out. This is crazy. So, again, I don't know everything. I'm trying new stuff. I think, but that's why that is, is that just simplified. Very easy. Come find out who we are. And again, it still needs some work, to be honest, lots of work, but Rome wasn't built in a day.
Exactly. And I love your fresh perspective. So cool. Thank you for sharing. All right. Lightning round.
Let's go.
What are your top 3 YouTube channels, whether it's marketing or could be anything else?
I'd have to go with Paid Media Pros. Number 1, Joe and Michelle. Lex Friedman. He's got a podcast, brings on some excellent guests. And then probably Andrew Huberman, would be my top 3, right? So 2 podcast channels and then 1, marketing and advertising channel. But there was a ton of marketing advertising channels that I think will, pop up here in the near future.
And let's do one more. You mentioned that you enjoy UFC.
Yes.
So who are your top 3 UFC fighters?
Ooh, that's tough. Oh, because I really just watch the sport to watch it. But let's go, Israel Adesanya. I really like him, in the middleweight, even though he just lost the championship. Let's go old school Nate Diaz. Gotta love Nate Diaz from California. And then he's not a fighter, but, I'd want to say Dana White, too. I think he's one of the most honest, let's not go honest. Let's go character. Just a character, because we don't know if he's, being honest about everything. It's hard to really tell, but I think he's a character, and I think he just tells it like it is. We don't know if it's honest or not, but let's just say he tells it like it is. I like him as the leader of a company. I like, what he's done to bring the UFC to where it is. And the reason why I've fallen in love with the UFC is the lack of impact of the referee. I think in American sports, the referee just has too much control, calls balls and strikes, can take our players out of the game in basketball, right?
Basketball.
And then in football, being able to throw the flag. Oh, there's so much in between that you're just but that's why is that you have a chance in the UFC not to leave it to a ref. And then also the other part of it about the UFC is that it's a world sport. You get to find out who the baddest, man or woman is on the planet, inside of a ring at a certain weight class. So just my cup of tea, I guess you could say.
I never thought about that, ref. It's oh my gosh, you were so right. There's something there.
It's interesting. It's an interesting one to think about.
What are you currently working on, and what's your next big project for 2023?
Oh, we're going to need another hour. Let's go. Currently, I'm in the process of launching variable analytics. And so away from my media company, this is just being able to build out custom dashboards across all the paid media channels, multi-platform reports, and then also beginning to dive into areas like IG Shop, pull out that data, and then also work in Shopify, being able to pull out that data. The program that I use is Power BI, and it's what I call the Photoshop of data. Is that a lot of people see my stuff and they're like, why don't you patent it? And my response is why don't you go download the program? It's free. This is nothing that I can patent. I'm just a nerd in a basement designing, right? And so I like it for, that aspect, but we're trying to develop these dashboards for clients. And we have a couple of agency clients that use it. We have, tons of brands where we see their data that flows through, but I'm not, selling it, I think, as well as I could be, because again, I've worked at agencies. I haven't worked at SaaS companies. People like Susan Winograd, who have worked at SaaS companies, have been giving me such amazing insight that I would have no idea about. And it's just really so helpful, to have people around. But yeah, I'm really trying to launch this analytics company, and, people like Michelle and Joe from Paid Media Pros, they've said things like, why don't you do templates? People keep asking you for templates, like just create templates, Cory. And so I'm working on it. And so I'm going to come out with templates, and we'll have 3 areas like templates, customized, and then, just consulting and auditing. Right. And so that's what I'm working on, right now, hoping to launch that very soon. And it's going to launch with templates. And I'm just going to create templates for Google Ads, YouTube, et cetera, that people can just download, for a nominal cost, just to see if it is useful. And then also we want to make like IG shops, a core part of what we do, and be able to take brands from just either D2C to multi-channel and to social commerce, or if they're already multi-channel and they want to learn more about social commerce, like being a leader in that area. I think we just have an amazing experience. And what we've learned in IG shops has just, made our, Facebook and Instagram, advertising that much better. Those 2 things, in addition to the agency, are just kind of like the things that I am working on. But you can see how, they all kind of merge together in a way. But I do want to separate them, to make sure that like when people go to that specific Notion website, right, that they're getting exactly what they're looking for.
I feel bad that I didn't intro you in the podcast as the king of Power BI, but it is true. Cory is the king of Power BI. And I'm so excited that you are making your templates available for a fee. It's about time. And I think everyone's going to be really excited.
Okay. Well, if you're that excited about it, we should, combine efforts, like a marketing mentor template, right? We'll give out to the class.
Totally. That would be really cool.
Yeah.
So, Cory, where can listeners learn more about you and your business?
Oh, you guys can just find me on Twitter, at Cory Henke, CORYHENKE, or you can go to the website, variable.media. But yeah, that's where you can find me, or, same name on LinkedIn. Always open a conversation, so feel free to shoot a DM.
Awesome, Cory. Thank you so much for being a guest on the Digital Marketing Mentor. And thanks to listeners for tuning into the Digital Marketing Mentor. Look forward to seeing you here again next time.
Thank you so much, Danny. I really appreciate it. To anybody listening, Danny, you're amazing, bro. Appreciate the time.
Thank you, Cory. Thank you for listening to the Digital Marketing Mentor podcast. Be sure to check us out online at thedmmentor.com and at the DM Mentor on Instagram. And don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts for more marketing mentor magic. See you next time.